everyone, Doc T here with another episode of the Horses Advocate podcast. I just had a magnificent week. I shared with Melissa and a student learning what we call horsemanship dentistry. And I wanted to take a moment by going over to, where did it go? Here it is, a dictionary. I went to dictionary.com. And I wanted to look at the two words, arrogance versus confidence. And I don't think there's anybody on the planet who likes arrogance. Arrogance is defined as offensive display of superiority or self-importance and overbearing pride. And if you look at synonyms, you get aloofness, chutzpah, disdain, ego, egotism, hubris, pretension, pride, smugness, braggadocio, cheeky, brass, gall, haughtiness, high-handedness, pomposity, just all these, and smugness, all these things are words that define a character of a person who is trying to make themselves self-important. And the difference between that and confidence can be sometimes hard to tell. And in confidence, the definition here is full trust, belief in the powers, trustworthiness, reliability of a person or thing. The second noun definition would be belief in oneself and one's powers or abilities, self-confidence, self-reliance, assurance. And I really like that because that's something that we tend to want to have: assurance, certainty, courage, determination, morale, poise, spirit, tenacity. These are all synonyms for confidence. And the reason I'm bringing this up is the student who's with me or with us had this knack, and we've had students here before. And at the very end of her stay learning horsemanship dentistry, I asked her, what was it that seemed to make her so slip into the groove? I don't know how else to put it. And she said, well, I had confidence and I was humble. And I said, well, let's just end that conversation right now, because to have confidence and to be humble is what I think all of us really strive to be in our day-to-day activities. But how does that help us with horses? And this is really, really important, because in horsemanship, I find that if you have confidence, whether it's a horse or a dog or a stranger or a loved one, when you show confidence, it brings the best out of people. It brings them toward you. It doesn't drive them away from you. And in our ability or in our desire to work with our horses, we want our horse to be our, quote, best friend. And a lot of times these horses are anything but our best friend. They are aloof. They are not caring about us. They hurt us. They stomp us into the wall. They do all sorts of things. I think everybody here wants to have a good experience when they get to the barn, when they get to the stall, when they get to be with that smelly, hairy, dirty creature. We want them to be hopeful that that moment is going to be really good. And I find that more and more people are scared of their horses. They are afraid of being hurt. Nobody wants to be hurt. They want a relationship that's better than what they have in life. They come to the barn for that security, for that I guess love that a horse brings us. And when we don't find it, it's discouraging, and it shakes our confidence, our self-confidence. Our worries and doubts and fears well up, and we start to push the horse around. And what I found interesting about our student was she never gave that air that would drive a horse away. A horse is always willing to say, yeah, I'll try this relationship. If only for a moment, I will give you the benefit of the doubt, and I will seek to understand what it is that you want from me. That is a place or a position, even if just for a moment, where all good relationships start. Because if I'm coming to you into your ears right now, and you don't want any part of me, well, you never would have tuned into this podcast. You would be listening to anybody else. If you had a prejudice against Doc T, you would never be listening to this podcast. You would just shut down. It would never occur. But maybe one or two of you will say, well, I don't know who this man is. I like horses, and I think I might try listening to him for just a second. Hopefully, I've placed a hook, if you will, so to speak, from fishing, that I can draw you toward me and build a relationship. Many of you who are listening to this know me personally, that you've seen me on your farm, or maybe you've never met me before, but you know that I don't have something I'm trying to sell you, that all I want is for you to understand your relationship with your horse, usually through nutrition or dentistry. And today I'm trying to show that there is a possibility of walking up to a horse that you've never seen before and connecting in a way that is just mind-blowing, if you will. So the student came here on Sunday, and on Sunday, I worked on two horses that I'd never seen before. Well, that's not actually true. I'd never floated before. I'd seen them a day or two beforehand, but I didn't have time to get them done. So I put them on for Sunday. And as I came from the airport with a student, I swung by and saw these two. And it was the first time. So those are two horses. And then on Monday, we spent all day going over the techniques and all the information that we want to make sure we understood about floating horses' teeth. So that was a in the home day. But Tuesday, I went out to see 7 horses that I had never, ever seen in my life. They had never been floated by me. And I connected with all 7. And what was phenomenal about those 7 horses was the distinct personalities of these horses. And it really made an impression on my student. There was a stallion who was what I call a choleric. And these choleric personalities are demanding, dominant, dictatorial, do it my way or get out of my way. I cannot stand stupid people. That's a choleric personality. And it was so much fun to work on this guy, because the best way you can make a choleric do anything is to make it their idea. So I made it his idea that what I was doing was actually helping. And I'm probably halfway through this stallion, and he's basically just standing there letting me work on him. It wasn't perfect, but that's okay. It was good enough. And this groom came up, and he's staring at me through the, outside the stall. And the students, looking at this, and he's got a big, big grin. I mean, just as big as possible. I said, what's going on? He says, I am just so amazed. This horse he scares me. He's hard to work with. He's always just very difficult in everything. And you're just standing here, and the horse is just standing here, and you're floating him, and he's not really fighting you. And that was just a really good example for the student to see, and then confirmation from the guy. We moved on to another horse that was what we call a sanguine. And this sanguine horse is so funny. Sanguines love a party. If there's a stage light on, they will get up on stage and dance for you. They look at everything as fun. If a wind comes along, they'll say, whoopee, let's go. They're hard to control. They're like herding cats. They're distracted. They think about squirrels going by, birds flying up, and you're trying to keep them focused. I'm over here. Come on, stay over here. Stay with me. And these are sanguines, and you can't get angry or frustrated with them. You have to actually joke around with them. And I did a lot of joking around. I would break their state, and I love breaking the state. And what I mean by that is, let's just pretend you're having a horrible argument with somebody, and just with no reason at all, you just reach out and poke them in the ribs. And they look at you and say, what'd you poke me in the ribs for? I said, no reason. What were we arguing about again? And it's almost impossible to come back to that point of anger when somebody just pokes you in the ribs, or makes a funny face, or makes a funny noise. And I make funny noises and funny faces to these horses all the time. And they keep looking back. What was that? What do you mean? And so I'm grabbing their attention. And this sanguine was like, it was laughable, just laughable. And we had another horse that I call a phlegmatic. And the phlegmatic horses are quiet. They want assurance. There's that word again, assurance that they are safe, that everything's going to be fine. They are often called bomb-proof horses. So you're just hanging out, and the horse just sits there with his head down, and you say, okay, we're going to put these kids on your back. And they say, okay. And everything just moves along. There's really no fight. There's no give and take. It's just like whatever you say, and they go ahead and do it. These horses can be extremely dangerous. I know it doesn't make sense. They're bomb-proof, right? I've seen so many bomb-proof horses that have a limit, and it's like no warning, no warning, no warning, kaboom. And you're laying on your back, and they're standing over the top of you, and they're basically saying to you, I gave you so much warning. And you're like, I never heard a thing. And they say, you do that again and I'll kill you. And phlegmatics are very easy to work with, as long as you're listening constantly, because they will give you warnings. It's just so subtle and so quiet that you probably will miss it. But when it happens, and it's firm, swift, and you can get hurt that way. And finally, I had another horse, and this personality, what I call melancholy, is in every horse to some degree, from barely evident to strongly evident. And these are horses, just like people, who need to know the structure and order of things. They need to know exactly what they're doing. Everything's in their place. And the order of go is I start here, and then I move through these steps to get over to here. Melancholies are easy to work with, especially if they've been exposed to the English language and you speak English. So you can say, for instance, when working in the horse's mouth, say, Okay, I'm going to take the float plate and I'm going to move it across your tongue to the other side of the mouth. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. Something as simple as that, because if you don't, and you just move it over to the other side of the mouth, the horse will throw its head up and try to cope with understanding what exactly you're doing. I see this all the time in people. I see it in horses. If you aren't clear of what you're trying to do, and you don't express it in words or in actions where they get it, then it's always a surprise. And whenever it's a surprise, then they like jump. They can't understand it. They have to worry about what all this means. And every horse has that to some degree. I work with a lot of horses imported from Europe, and I always ask, if I know that they're imported, where did they come from? And you have different places where English is not used. Horses from Mexico, or horses from the Netherlands, or from France, or from Russia, and they all come here to America. And I find that I've learned a couple of words in that language that the horse will understand. And I focus on the word, thank you, good. So a French horse will say, très bien, merci, merci. And these horses, you'll see their ears flick forward right at you, saying, everyone's been speaking a foreign language, but those are words I understand. And I'll never, ever forget the day I was doing a pre-purchase exam. And this trainer, who was very confident in who she was, and she was a good trainer, had this horse going around in a circle on the lunge line. And I said to her, okay, I'm all done. That's good. And so she started to say to the horse, whoa, 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 stop. Now hold on here. Slow down. Whoa. And the horse just kept trotting around her, wouldn't stop, just totally ignored her, around and around and around. And finally, I said to her, didn't you say this horse came from Great Britain? Great Britain, England, Ireland, that whole area. And she immediately uses a British accent to the word whoa. So I'll do the best I can here. She said, oh, that horse stopped so fast that the dirt in front of the hooves flew out 3 feet. I was laughing so hard, I fell to the ground. I couldn't stop laughing. But that's what I mean. Here's a horse that didn't understand our accent, even though it was the same words. And once the trainer used something that was familiar, the horse was more than obedient, but didn't understand the language. And that lesson is stuck with me. And I hope to pass on to all of you listening, that sometimes you have to use the right words, the right language, the right accent to get a horse to understand. They're more than willing, especially the true melancholies who need the instructions. You have to be very fluent in the language they understand. And we had all 4 personalities in this barn. It was fascinating. It was an experience that really opened the students' eyes up to communication. And that was really good. Then the next day, we actually had Wednesday and Thursday working at a nonprofit place. And combined, we did 24 horses in 2 days. Melissa and I working together, and the student working, actually floating the teeth and getting in there and understanding the connections that we have. And we had every type of personality. We had every horse was brand new to us. The whole barn was brand new to us. And there was a point where the student actually had to break down in in, how do I say this? You know, sometimes when you're worried and you start to have doubts, um, you fear that you're going to be a failure. You fear that you can't do this. You struggle. You become frustrated, and it's overwhelming, the amount of information we give. And it hit her hard, and it hits a lot of our students hard, where they just have to stop and express their frustrations in so many ways. And we just let it pour out. And then at some point, we build on that. It's like we take a house, and at some point, instead of trying to make it look better and work better, it's torn down to the foundations and then built back up. And that's what we do here at the Horsemanship Dentistry School. We take everyone's personal ideas of what it's like to be a horseman, and we tear down the structure that they have, and we find their root or their foundation. And so many people have a foundation of that's wrong. And you guys who are listening to this, you have to tear down your house and look at your foundation. Are you a mean person? Are you unwilling to give up control? Are you a poor communicator? These are foundational skills that you have to take your whole life and tear it off and get down and say, okay, what foundational properties do I have that are good and that are bad? And at the end of this week, this particular student exposed her foundation to me of confidence and being humble. And on that foundation, you can build anything in your life. Gratefulness, joy, those are the foundations that you need to be good at any relationship, from horses to dogs to humans. And I find that most people are seeking out horses to help them with their really bad foundations. They have addictions. They have bad memories of being abused. They have no confidence at all in themselves. They doubt themselves. They worry. They are in fear. They're living in fear, either of other humans, or they've had a bad experience with a horse. And when somebody says that they're shaken to the core, what's happened is they've had cracks placed in their foundation, and it's no longer stable. So in our school, we take down the whole structure to the foundation, and then we expose this foundation. And when that happens, it's quite an emotional time for people. And then we build back up on that foundation through trust, confidence that Melissa and I exude toward them, almost like concrete coming out of a cement mixer. And we say, go ahead and build a new foundation. And for those who are willing to build a new foundation, the house they build is absolutely incredible. But those who are not willing to build a new foundation, who are stuck in what they believe, will falter and fail. And if you're one of these people who have a foundation that you and you alone, when you're like alone at night, eyes closed, meditating, whatever you're doing, driving down the road right now, and you ask yourself, what's my foundation like? And your foundation is built on lying, cheating, stealing. If your foundation is in dominating the other person, dominating the horse, that foundation will not allow you to build a beautiful home or a relationship between you and anybody else in the world. And I've told everyone this a million times. I'll say it one more time. If you're having trouble with your horse, stop, stand in front of a mirror and look at the problem, because the problem is you. If you cannot change you, if you're not willing to tear down what you've built for a life and look at your foundation and then rebuild it, then nobody's going to want to be with you, including your horse. And while these words sound really harsh, and I understand that they're harsh, I'm not standing in front of you. I'm just in your ears. I don't have to worry that I'm hurting your feelings. And I always try to get the truth when it works with horses. I want you to understand, if it's working for you, that's great. But if it's not working for you, you don't need to purchase equipment, special halters, have gimmicks. You don't need that. If you want to work with a horse, you have to stand in front of the mirror at your reflection and ask yourself, am I able to build a relationship? And that always comes down to, what kind of foundation do you have? I'll give you another example. During these the 2 days that we're working these horses, we went to another farm where one horse was, one of the 24. This woman was not the owner. The owner never came out of the house, but she had hired this new person, a nice young lady who right from the beginning seemed wound up and tight. She kept offering an excuse that, well, I'm new here. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who you are. I don't know this. The excuses came out. There's a dozen of them within the first 30 seconds. And we were there right on time. And she was the only person I could talk to. And she had no idea I was coming. She didn't know anything about the horse that I was supposed to look at. And she became very tense, and she was working with a horse at the time. Luckily, the horse was like, yeah, I'm not worried about her. She's harmless. But I could feel the tension. Finally, when we got the owner to explain what horse it was literally like in miles. I mean, it was a quarter of a mile away, which is like, I don't know how many kilometers away, but it was far away, so far. And this girl had to put her horse away, and then she had to walk that whole distance out to catch the horse. So the three of us were just sitting there looking at her from a distance. And this woman went into the paddock. It was the only horse in the paddock. To give you an idea, so you know what kind of horse it was a Paso Fino horse. So it wasn't a giant horse. This is just a, small thoroughbred type size. And she would get up to the horse, be right next to the horse, and then she would just stop. She wouldn't exude confidence. She wouldn't say, okay, I'm here to put a halter on you, or even a lead rope around the neck, because it's out in the field. The horse stood and said, no, I don't think I want you, and just walked away. And we watched this for like 10 minutes. She would go up, stand next to the horse, never go to the next step of applying this halter. And the horse was just like, no, I'm gone, I'm done. And it's so frustrating, because we see a lot of people who have been trained in their horsemanship skills to wait for the horse to come to you and then put the halter out and wait for them to stick their nose into the halter. And this is a rescue place. And these horses have so many experiences in the past. All they're looking for is someone who's confident. And I understand that there are a lot of people who want to be at liberty, which means to walk up to a horse, engage the horse mentally, and say, okay, we're going to walk in this direction, and have the horse immediately come with you because you're such a darn good leader that everybody and everything wants to follow you, just like Dr. Doolittle. And if you don't know Dr. Doolittle, it was an old story about a man who would go out and just skip away, and all these animals would come out of the woods and follow him because he was such a great leader. And we all want this. But I've got news for you. Ain't happening. It just doesn't happen. Not in situations where you have a horse that's 10, 15 years old and has had 10 or 15 years of different experiences. And they look at us as another dumb human. So finally, we all got in the car and drove to the other end of the farm where this girl was. And she finally was able to get a lead rope around the horse's neck and was dragging it with her over to us. And one look at this horse, it was so kind. It was so, what's the word? Deferring, is willing to do whatever you want, but had this girl's number. And it turns out that this girl is 3 years sober. So she's had addictions in her life. She's had a horrible time in her life. She's desperate for this job. She's basically referring everything back to the boss. The boss wants this, the boss wants that. So I basically said, well, what do you want? And we engaged in a conversation that was so, I don't know if I want to say upsetting, but it was exposing. We had a conversation that was so exposing to her while I'm working on this horse that she burst into tears. I mean, tears are streaming down her face. And she became motionless. I mean, she couldn't go anywhere. She was so excited to see how we were working with a horse. She was so excited to be around people who actually were willing to listen to her and her pain that she was going through, that she broke down into tears. And Melissa said to her, don't worry, you're in a safe space here. You can let down your hair, you can let your tears out and be with us. And this is what we do with our horses. You're in a safe space. We're absolutely 100% listening to you. We know that you have a story. We know that you don't like men and you don't like vets. We understand that, but I'm not that man and I'm not that vet. I've explained that Robin Williams, the great actor who took his life, who is so funny in the movie RV, was rapping. And in the middle of a rap, he stuck his hand up with palm out, and the palm's facing the person. And he says, talk to the hand. And we've all heard that expression. You've got a story. I really don't want to know what your story is, because your story is irrelevant to me or the situation, but you're talking to me about your story. I hate men and I hate vets and I don't want anything to do with you. Talk to the hand. And then he flips his hand around so the back of his hand is facing you. So it goes from the palm facing you to the back of the hand facing you. And he says, call waiting. Talk to the hand, call waiting. And what that means is, let's start a new conversation. Let's put your call on call waiting and start a new conversation. I'm not that man. I'm not that veterinarian. I'm not that person that is from your past that made your life miserable. And these horses will just stop and look at you and say, whoa, what just happened here? And the whole house is completely wiped away in one motion. And the foundation's exposed. Now we can understand the personality. Are you a melancholy where you need to be told everything that needs to be done? Or are you phlegmatic where you say, life is, safe right now. I feel very safe with you because I'm down to my exposed foundation, and I see your foundation because you, the person working with the horse, is also down to their foundation. We don't have any glitter. We don't have anything going on. We, as horsemen, are trying to match our personality with the personality of the horse. Are you a sanguine? Do you want to be a little goofy? You want to like dance and play? Or are you the choleric, where everything has to be your idea? You know, the horse has to say, hey, this is what I want to do. And we let them do it right into where we want them to be. And this poor girl, she was so grateful that for just a moment, she was allowed to really expose herself. It's cathartic, meaning it's just all the crap comes out. All of it. It's like flushing the toilet, if you will, where all of a sudden you have some clean water afterwards. It's exposing you to your core, and suddenly seeing that there's somebody else here who's exposed themselves to their core. And now we can have complete understanding of where we want to be and how we are to each other. And so many people have a wall built up. Their wall is made of steel and concrete, and somebody tries to start a relationship with them, just human to human, and there's no way you can get through it. I've always said that you can make a connection within 30 seconds with anybody or anything. You don't have 30 days, you don't have 30 minutes, you can do it in 30 seconds. And the story I love to tell is the time I went into the 7-Eleven, which is a convenience store if you've never heard of it. And the guy behind the counter was like, here's another customer. I mean, they see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of customers a day, and people are throwing money at them and demanding this and demanding that, and it's their job. I looked at him and I knew he's from an area that I would call India. And I said to him, so where are you from? He says, India. And I knew that. So I already had planned my next question or statement. I said, oh, India is amazing. They have the longest lived democracy on earth. And here you are in America with a democracy. That must be really exciting for you. So I'm reflecting back to him just one idea. His eyes lit up. And for the next 30, 60 seconds, we had a conversation about what democracy is in America and in India. And I told him, you know, his heart must want to go back to India a lot. And congratulations for choosing America. And thank you for being here, making America a little bit better. That's all I said. He took my money and I went out the door and out to the car at the gas pumps, where Melissa was. And Melissa's out there looking up, and I'm just getting in the car. She says, uh-oh, what'd you do now? And I'm like, I look up and I see this man has left the store and is trotting across the asphalt to my car. And I roll my window down and he sticks his head in and he says, thank you so much. I want to let you know just how much I enjoyed that conversation. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. That's what we can do with horses. We stop and listen. We hold our hand up so we don't really want to hear the story that this is your job and you're taking my money and I'm just another customer. I'm not that type of customer. I'm interested in you. I'm interested in who you are. And once you start thinking like that, the horse is going to start a relationship. They can't help it. And that's what we did every horse this week. Every horse that we saw, we had never seen before. And on Friday, we saw another 7, 8 horses that we had never, well, I take that back. The first 4 horses we had never seen before. The second four, there's only one new one. And this student worked on that one and had such a great experience that we all three were just so thrilled for her. And it turns out that she said at the very end, when I asked her, okay, so what is it that is doing this? She felt like she was self-confident and that she was humble. And the humble is what's really important. The humble, you can do your, what I call an end zone dance. I mean, when something is good, you can do the Tiger Woods fist pump. You can dance and sing and flutter about. That's still being humble. You can still be excited for the win that you had with that particular horse, but you're not going to let it go to your head. You're not going to let it change your foundation. You're not going to let fear creep in. You're going to say, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this relationship. I'm grateful for what happened between you and me. And I think I want to work on that some more. And then you come back each time, but you come back with a more solid foundation. You lay a little bit more concrete on it. You make it really solid, and then build your house on that. You can build a very efficient, very good structure that everybody wants to be in. It's got a warm fireplace. It's got comfortable seating. It's got large windows to see the beautiful world. Whatever it is, it's always about the foundation. I think that's the point I want to get across in this podcast. I want you to understand the difference between arrogance, which is not self-confidence. It's totally the opposite. It's a cracked, crumbling foundation that you're struggling to keep your house on, and you fake it. But in reality, you're in trouble, and your relationships at work or with your loved ones, with your family, with yourself, go down the tubes. You lean toward alcohol or other drugs because you don't have a great foundation. And almost every one of us listening, or every one of you listening to this podcast, is struggling. They're struggling to find a better way with their horses, with their life. They might find that they're addicted at some level to having some alcohol, to cigarettes, to food, to other addictive behaviors. And because you're trying to patch up your foundation, and you kind of get mad at people who don't need any of these addictive things because they're good with themselves. They're solid with themselves. They don't need a wall. Anything that comes in, an angry person, an angry horse, can come right up to you and challenge you. And you just say, I am who I am. And this is the way I am. And if you don't like the way I am, that's fine. I'm not going to hold it against you. You know, I politically lean this one, this way, or my beliefs in a pandemic go that way. That's fine. Do whatever you want to do. I'm good with who I am and what I believe in. And that is such a hard place for so many people to get to. But once you get there, the horses will become, I won't say putty in your hand. That's not really true, but they'll be there. They're not going to leave you. You can work on the conversation. A lot of these horses need more work than just an instant 30 seconds. But in 30 seconds, you've got their attention and you've got the hook, if you will, that you can start to work with. There's one caveat to all this. And of course, all of you listening to me know that I've got to say this, but a lot of horses are having horrible, horrible times in their head because they're being fed grain. And grain is sugar, and sugar leads to a lot of problems. I've discussed this a billion times in my podcast, and I'll do it a billion more times until every one of you understands that feeding sugar in excess is going to lead to chronic protein deficiencies and a lot of imbalances, if you will. I hate that word, but let's just use it. Imbalances in your brain waves, in everything, in the way you feel, in your brain fogginess, happens in horses and happens in you. If you are eating tons of sugar in the morning, you put sugar in your coffee and you eat rolls and breads and icings and donuts and stuff, your ability to connect is going to be drastically reduced. The more you don't eat until the end of the day, the more you work on avoiding sugars during the day, the better your connection is going to be with a horse. This is that little tidbit at the end of the podcast. If you really, really want to do this and you've been doing a lot of soul searching and you think your foundation is pretty good, but the horses are still having a problem with you, you need to change your diet, because everything inside of you that's happening moment by moment is being driven by the food that you eat. And if you love to eat sugar, if you have rolls and stuff and sugar in your coffee, or you drink one of those sugary drinks, energy drink, even if it's fake sugar, it's going to affect your brain waves. If you focus on eating nothing, or ketones or proteins for breakfast, if you need to have that breakfast, don't eat much of it. Personally, I just have some butter in my coffee because that's a nice fat, and that fat will drive the energy that your brain needs to keep going. I put it in my coffee and blend it up, and then around noon or so, depending on the day, but depending on how hard I've worked, but usually around noon to 2 o'clock, even as late as 4 o'clock, I'll take my first meal, and it can be my main meal of the day. And at that point, I'm satisfied. I don't need to eat that much. And I have clarity of thought throughout the day. If you have clarity of thought and you can focus on doing the right things, your life with yourself and with your horses is going to be amazing. So 2 things: get your health right. The horses feel it, they can see it. And 2, work on your foundation and get that right. And then invite the horse to bring their foundation in and match yours, matching your personality with their personality, and you'll go everywhere. And that's what this gal did. She's only 20 years old, so she doesn't have a lot of bad experiences. But we've had 18-year-olds come to us who've had horrible experiences, who live homeless, who have found their friends dead lying next to them. So we've had all sorts of people come to our school with different experiences, and yet we teach them how to tear down their house, look at their foundation, and build a new house, the house that they want. And the horses help them with that. And if you aren't willing to do that, the horse, they'll try, but then they'll say no and they'll move away, and you don't have that relationship you're looking for. So focus on those 2 words, arrogance and confidence. If you're arrogant, it's never going to work. If you're confident and humble, you will be able to change yourself. And once you change yourself, you'll be able to change the relationship you have with your horses. That's it. That's Doc T. This is what I've learned after 49 years of working with horses. And I guess 50th year we'll have a party. I don't know. But I've learned that you have to, it's an inside job. If you want to have a good relationship with your horse, you look in the mirror and you'll take care of yourself, and get rid of your arrogance and work on your confidence. All right, that's it, Doc T. I've taken up your time. Come to the Horses Advocate. This is where we discuss things like that, thehorsesadvocate.com. Please join me there. If you want to become a member, that's awesome. I love the members. That's who I communicate with the most. We do some special things over there that other people don't have a chance to do. And of course, the contribution that you make there drives the mission and keeps these podcasts going. and the website's going. So please consider, if you like what I say, please support me by becoming a member of the Horses Advocate. And thank you very much. And I'll be around for next week for another podcast. See you. Bye.
Hey, everyone. Doc T here. Thank you for listening to my content. Would you do me a huge favor? Would you please subscribe, comment, like, thumbs up, and give a star review? However it's presented to you, I want you to do that. There's two reasons. The first, of course, is to improve this product. This way I know what you like, what you don't like, what I can improve upon, what topics you want me to cover. But more importantly, it's also going to help others find me. And by doing that, you are now engaged in this mission of helping horses thrive in a human world. By you helping, we can reach others. And that I would be so grateful for. And remember, go to thehorsesadvocate.com for updates on this information. Thehorsesadvocate.com. And again, thank you so much for being here. Doc T out.